Welcome to the Reawakening Ancient Feminine Wisdom in Pregnancy, Birth, and Motherhood Summit. I'm your host, Nancy Lucina, and today we have with us Blair Fillingham. Blair is the founder of maternal.com, an online yoga studio that specializes in prenatal and postnatal yoga. Blair is on a mission to ensure all women feel loved, supported, and prepared for motherhood. She has a vision for a world where the divinity in every woman is honored and cherished, where motherhood is considered sacred and is protected as such, and where birth outcomes and postpartum depression statistics are improved. Today, Blair shares with us her journey from the high-heeled corporate world to the down-to-earth realm of motherhood, and so much more. Hi, I'm Nancy Lucina, and today I will be speaking with Blair Fillingham from maternal.com. Welcome, Blair.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you so much for being here with us. I'm really excited to hear what you have to say about many different things, but particularly the area of yoga and preparation for birth and postpartum using yoga to help women do that. So I'm wondering if we could start with you sharing a little bit about your own story, perhaps, of what it was like for you to become a mother and what eventually led you into this work. Why do you now have this beautiful online space where women can come and meet and do virtual yoga together, which is so cool.
Yeah, it's definitely been quite a journey. I am mother of two beautiful little girls. I have a nearly 5-year-old and a nearly 3-year-old. And I had wonderful pregnancies. I was a power yogi leading up to my first pregnancy. So I was one of those heated, strong yogis that were doing handstands and crazy, gymnastics in their classes every day, dedicated practice every day. And when I found out from my OBGYN that I couldn't do heated yoga anymore, I cried. Like I cried. I was just trying, like, how can I find a way to keep doing the yoga that I love so much and that just gave me so much pleasure. And so much relief because I worked a really high stress corporate job as well.
Okay.
And so I actually broke the rules and practiced heated yoga. I tried a prenatal yoga class and I found it really boring and really slow. And everyone was just kind of like lying and rolling around on the floor. And I was like, this is too slow for me. I need something that moves faster. And so I broke the rules and I went back to my heated yoga studio. And I would just practice at the back of the room. And so that I'd have the door open a little bit to have a little bit of cool air. But I probably was around 20 weeks that I started to feel woozy, that I started to feel in my body that it wasn't right to be continuing. And that's when I threw in the towel and went, okay, I'm going to have to go and do some prenatal yoga now. And I was
eventually warmed up to it. I mean, you felt
I had a wonderful prenatal yoga teacher, but I was doing the prenatal yoga in between bar classes and gym workouts and power walking, and I just felt this need to stay really, really fit and strong, and so the prenatal yoga was like the antidote, I guess, to all of that, to relax. And then I had the experience of being told that I had to have a scheduled C-section.
Okay.
And because I had a breech baby, and in Washington, in the US, they won't deliver a breech baby vaginally.
Right.
And so that was a huge shock to my system because I'd done all this work to prepare my body for this marathon, and I'm being told you're going to cut my belly open.
Right.
And so I then kind of just dropped everything and did everything in my power to kind of try and turn the baby. I was doing there's the yoga poses you can be doing. I was doing them, 10 times a day. I was getting upside down. I was doing my cat-cows, and I was turning this baby pretty much every day. I would get her to turn, and then she would just turn back.
Wow.
Oh,
and
wow.
she did not want to come out upside down.
Wow.
So I had the scheduled C-section, and it was such a huge shock to my system. It was a traumatic experience. The drugs didn't work properly and yada, yada. So I ended up just feeling really depleted and really crushed after it. And then a few months later was kind of pushed back into the corporate world, kind of thrust back into the corporate world. And within a couple of months of that, I started experiencing depression. So postpartum depression hit me around the 6-7 month mark with both of my babies.
Okay.
So I kind of broke the mold of thinking that you get postpartum depression straight
Only
after you have your baby.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
I fit the category of somebody that gets it around the 6 month mark.
Okay.
And years later, I now know it was all a chemical process that was happening in my body, and I've got all of the right kind of supplements and vitamins and support from a naturopath to help me my body in balance.
Yeah.
But so it's pretty intense.
Yeah.
Pretty intense for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we started the recording, we were just talking a little bit about how our own children tend to initiate us in these different ways, right? And then put us somehow on a path of our work in the world too. So you discovered, you had always been into yoga for a while, but then you discovered this new place in your heart for mothers to be and new mothers. So how do you hold space for these new or mothers to be? You have both prenatal and postpartum in your online yoga studio, right? So what kind of space do you hold for them in terms of allowing them to really, I like the word unravel themselves, because it's such a journey, right? Becoming a mother, you have to let go of so much stuff. Like just like with your own birth story, you had the certain expectation, and then you had to let go of that. I think we all have different ways that has played out when we become mothers. Like we have to let go of certain things, and then we make space for possibly even bigger things. So I think that there's such an unraveling process that happens with mothers to be. So tell us a little bit about how you maybe hold space in that beautiful room behind you. Looks
my
so
little yoga
welcoming.
studio. It's the thing is that people can show up with whatever is going on in their life, and regardless of whether they're working that high stress corporate job, or I've got one woman who's a member of maternal who's a high stress OBGYN. Like she's delivering babies, doing C-sections and trying to carry her pregnancy around as well. And many of the women that come into this space are experiencing yoga for the first time. So they're getting to experience just how the simplicity of some of the movements can make their body feel so good, and they can experience so much relief. But it's really coming and getting what you need. So the space I'm creating is that it's not just a pre-recorded yoga class that you can get online. It's showing up and saying, hey, this is how I'm feeling right now today. And this is what I think I need. And then I can give it to them, or the teacher who's delivering the class can give that to them. So that version of me from 5 years ago could show up and say, working this really stressful corporate job, I love power yoga, I want to do handstands, and this is what I need. And then the teacher can respond to that and give you what you need. I'm not necessarily going to put a pregnant woman in a handstand by any means. So you show up and I just hold that space for women to be able to just feel better. And it doesn't take much. It doesn't take long. They don't have to commit to an hour and a half yoga class. Sometimes it really is just coming and sitting and breathing for 10 minutes, and it can completely change your day and how you feel.
Well, I love that you brought that up, because one of the questions I wanted to ask was, how do you, especially you were saying this one woman who has a very high demanding job, and then even just becoming a mom, even without having another job, motherhood is so demanding, right? So how do you recommend women to balance self-care with all of the demands of life and motherhood? I love that you said it could only take 10 minutes, so maybe that's part of the equation, but what do you say to women who say, I don't have time, or like,
It's so hard. It is so hard. And the majority of women who are members of Maternal aren't able to come to all the live classes. They maybe do 5 minutes of the class that shows up in their Facebook group, or they're reading my emails and taking a deep breath and feeling better. And the main thing that these mums are emailing me when I'm checking in with them about is, now that I've had a baby, I just can't find time for me. I really genuinely can't. And they're asking for advice on how to talk to their partner about that, and how to explain to their partner, rather than kind of having to ask their partner to hold the baby or watch the baby constantly. It's how to actually talk to them about what that looks like.
Right.
And I definitely had that moment. So this is kind of what ended up leading me into prenatal yoga, teaching it, I should say, is I was at a point in my corporate job. I'd gone through this depression. I was just struggling. I was crying on my way to work. My husband was carrying me to the shower in the morning just to get me to go into the office each day. And I'd sit there and pump in the office, just feeling utterly just depleted, depressed, and desperate to go home and see my baby. But I didn't know that there was any alternative to that. I thought that's what I had to do.
Yeah.
And there was a nanny at home that got to be with my baby while I was in the office. And it was all just so strange, but I felt like that's what I had to do. And then I just got to a point where I realized, I kind of sat down with a piece of paper and I wrote, like, what are the things that make me happy? Like, what are the things that I want to do? And one of those things was, I want more time for yoga. Like, I know that makes me feel better. And so that actually led to me going and speaking to my management. Like, it was a big process that I went through, lots of writing, lots of thinking, lots of meditating. Went to my management and said to them, I would like you to reduce my work schedule. I'm going to commit to doing more, but I want to do it in less time. And I'm going to sign up for a yoga teacher training. And it's going to be on Fridays, so I won't be coming into the office on Fridays. And and I ended up like getting a bonus that year as a result.
Oh my God. I love this story.
Leadership, right?
Wow.
So I figured out a changed work schedule that allowed for me to work very unique hours, and I didn't get paid less. I got paid more, and I went and did my teacher training on Fridays. And then in the teacher training, I found myself arguing with the teacher a lot about anything related to pregnant women or mothers. Because a lot of those things that I'd been practicing for 10 years with power yoga, now that I was a mother, I could see how they weren't serving me and serving the mother's body. And so I would question my teacher on that and say, well, that pose just doesn't seem like it would be supportive to the woman, and wouldn't that be restricting blood flow to the fetus? And I would just be having those kinds of questions. And I get really heated about it and really quite passionate about it. And they say, what you feel passionate about, like whatever makes you angry should be the thing that you do.
Yep, exactly.
And then I became pregnant again during that teacher training, and that became the perfect way for me to challenge my teacher on, well, I'm pregnant, I've got this belly, this pose doesn't feel right. So why would we be doing it? And so then as soon as actually while I was still pregnant, I went and did the prenatal yoga teacher training. So I finished that teacher training and went and did prenatal yoga teacher training with a woman that's been teaching prenatal yoga for 30 years. And she'd started teaching prenatal yoga when she was challenging her teachers back in the day. Yoga isn't serving women. This is yoga for men. This is not
Right.
yoga for women.
Wow. I love
So
that.
it definitely was a journey. And so what I learned through all of that was to really listen to my gut and my intuition on what was and wasn't right. Kind of did the training, learned what was anatomically and biologically right and wrong. But then was given permission from my prenatal yoga teacher, who trained me to teach, just to really trust my intuition and serve the women, serve whoever shows up. It could be one woman who shows up and you give her what she needs.
And you serve her from that place of intuition, right?
Yeah. And just trusting that she's come to you for a reason, and I'm here. Like the teacher shows up when the student is ready.
Yeah. I love that phrase. Yeah.
So you trust that that's what's going on, and it's real, and it's a beautiful, magical thing that happens every time. It's just every single woman that I have had the privilege of teaching over the last 3 years now, I guess. Is in my heart. Like I know their birth story. I know how their pregnancy was. I just can see their face vividly in my mind, because you spend so much time with each woman, watching her transform through pregnancy into becoming a mother. And
that's so beautiful.
Yeah.
I absolutely loved hearing your story about how you went to your boss and said, here's the deal, here's what's going on, this is what I need to be happy. I think that is going to be very inspiring for anyone listening, because we live in such a, kind of masculine dominated world where we're like taught to push, go, push through. And that energy over time will deplete us if we have a feminine essence. And I think we meet our feminine essence in a really deep way during pregnancy and birth, and especially motherhood. You're just so cracked open on all the levels, no matter how your birth went. It's just such a deeply opening process. And so it's a way where I think we can't hide anymore as well from ourselves. It's like, oh, this actually isn't making me happy. Some truths that might feel difficult reveal themselves. And some people feel like maybe they're trapped in that system. So I find your story so inspiring to just maybe, if it can help another woman say like, okay, something's not working for me. How can I make a shift? And I think when we just open up to receiving something new, life can sometimes arrange it in such magical ways. Like, could you ever have imagined that you would be where you are now, sitting back in that corporate, job? So fascinating. And now you're really, sounds like you're really living your dharma, right? How you would say it in the yogic terms, I think. Oh, that's super inspiring. I love that.
And it's not easy.
It's not.
Because you do have this way that you've been successful in the world for all these years, and that way of operating has worked for you, and then you can definitely try to continue functioning like that. And I see many women successfully functioning, in the way they did before having children, and they have a lot of support around them usually to be able to do that. But I would want to say to kind of the women who maybe just have that little voice in the back of their head, or that kind of ache in their heart. There's kind of like this feeling you get right here of just kind of knowing that something isn't right. And I would just encourage them to be curious about it and investigate it, rather than just doing the pushing and just like, okay, I've just got to go to work. I've got to take my kid to childcare. This is just what you do.
Right.
And because it just isn't. And I'm meeting more and more women who are being given permission by someone like you, or someone like me, or one of our elders, like my teachers, giving permission to say, you don't have to keep functioning like that. You can stop and spend some time with your children. You can stop to heal. And if you do stop and give yourself, if it is 10 minutes, or in my case, I took 2 years off, right? I took 2 years off the corporate world after I had my second baby, and giving yourself that time and space is going to set you up for the next chapter of your life.
Yes.
I read a beautiful thing in a book this week that I highly recommend, called The First 40 Days. And it's like a recipe book, and talks about how to prepare for your 4th trimester.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, one of the things I thought was really beautiful that was kind of shared through ancient wisdom in that book was that what you do for those 40 days after birth will set you up for the next 40 years.
Wow. I love that.
So I would add that the pregnancy, what you do and open yourself up to through pregnancy, and then recovering from that pregnancy in your postpartum period.
Yes.
And then those early mothering years are going to set you and your family up for the rest of your life.
It's so true. It's so true. Oh, I love the 40-day, how that's slowly beginning to come back into our modern world as well. I'm hearing that talked about more and more, which I get really excited about, because it's such a cocoon time that's so necessary for positive imprinting as well, right? With your baby. So you're not only setting up yourself, your family, your baby's life as well. It's just so vital.
Yeah. And there's just ways to make it work, you know. And one of my big corporate world, I had this great, huge income, and I did not want to throw that away. I did a lot of accounting and maths and budgeting to be like, how can I keep my lifestyle the way it is and not, you know, and I just, it did take me a while to figure out that it just was more important for me to find a new way of living. It didn't mean I was eating, you know, baked beans out of a can. Like, you create these paradigms in your head where it's like, well, it's either this awesome life where I'm having champagne brunch every weekend, or it's a life where I'm eating baked beans out of a can. It's just, it doesn't have to be like that. There is really this place that you'll find in the middle. And you just being a slave to that salary is not fun.
Well, that was actually one question I thought to ask you, is what did you find that you really had to let go of in becoming a mother? And I think maybe you already talked about a bit of that, but then because I think that there is this impossible image sold to women of like, don't worry, you're going to have a baby and then you'll be good to go like a few weeks later and back to work. It's like, wait, what?
And I had that image. I was like, I was all about Sheryl Sandberg's Lean In. I did 2 world tours for work while I was pregnant.
Wow.
And then once I had my baby, I would travel with her, my first baby, Kendall. I would take her with me on my work business trips so that I could keep breastfeeding her. And I was so committed to living that version of the glamorous supermom. And my husband thought I could do that too. He was like, you can do this. You're going to like beat the odds and be this powerful supermom. And, you know, of course, 6 months later, there I was in depression, couldn't even, you know, pull myself out of bed in the mornings. Right. So it had consequences that I pushed too hard for too long. So there's definitely, you know, there's consequences. You know, they say in yoga that you've got to have your counter pose, right? There's the pose you do to open your shoulders this way, and then there's the pose you do to, you know, you have to counter.
Right.
And so my counter pose for going so hard, you know, literally presenting on stage at a conference in London and then running in my like 6-inch heels back to my hotel room where the nanny was holding my baby, and I would grab my daughter and put her on my boob and quickly breastfeed her and hand her back to the nanny and run back to my meetings, right? Like, what? So I decided I had to give that up.
Yep. Exactly. This was a good question for you, because that was a really, really big and deep journey, it sounds.
Yeah, it was pretty epic. pretty epic. But I think like generally, so 5 years in, the big thing that I'm realizing I need to kind of let go of is attachment to getting things done,
Oh yeah.
producing things,
Yep.
and being really conscious of this. It's just deeply ingrained into us, I think, especially our generation. From very young, we were all very achievement oriented and getting our certificates and doing all of our, sports or extracurricular activities or whatever it is, and feeling like you need to do to get loved.
To get love. Yeah, exactly. For me, that's so interesting that you touch on that, because for me, one of my deepest lessons of becoming a mother is still my value, my self-worth is inherent. It's not based on anything outside of myself. And I think up until that point, it was like, if I do this, then if I have this, if I produce this, and there is so much pressure, even on very creative entrepreneur like women. I mean, we're both entrepreneurs, working in the online sphere now. There's still that pressure of like, okay, what have you produced? What have you launched? It's like, ooh, and that again, that's very yang. So I love in this interview that we're bringing this up, because I really want to talk about this feminine wisdom and this more ancient voice within that says, slow down. For me, it's like the kids slow you down, right? Being a mother, it's both. Like you have to, there's a lot of demands as being a mother, but then as well, you have to slow down and really be present with them, which forces you to really be present with yourself. Right?
Yes.
So,
it does. And allows you to really experience it all as well. Allows you to feel like, why did you have a baby in the first place? Like why? You really ask yourself that question and say, well, because I wanted to have this little human that I could love and adore and chase around and play with. And so, and that's a tough one. I posted on Facebook or Instagram to some friends recently that phrase that lots of older women say, which is enjoy them while they're young. And even when you're pregnant, you have so many people saying, I know it feels like it's going so long, for so long, but this is really fast and it's going to be over so quickly. So enjoy it while you can. Like there's a lot of you're like told, enjoy it while you can. Yeah. And in the moment you're like, screw you. This is really hard. I'll enjoy it once I've gotten the chores done and the washing and make lunches and whatever it is, because there's so many demands. But then again, when you step back and realize that if you just sit with your child and let them crawl all over you, or if you just roll around in the grass with them for a while, or like literally just being there for them and enjoying them is all they want.
Exactly.
It's all they want. So whether they're in your belly or, climbing trees, like all they want is your attention. Your intention as well.
Yeah, your presence. Oh, that's beautiful.
And the more parenting I do, and the more years I'm in this mother's body, this mothering role, the more I'm learning that mindfulness and listening to my intuition on what should come next. Like and actually should is a really dangerous word. What do I want to come next, or what needs to come next? You know what needs to come next? My daughter just wants a cuddle right now. I'm just going to sit down and give her a cuddle. And just knowing that that's one of the most beautiful, magical things you could possibly do for your child is give them a cuddle. Like that's it.
Oh, I love that simplicity. I felt like that really opened up my heart a lot, just hearing you say that. That actually, gosh, the time went by so fast. I loved this conversation. But I wanted to. I know, it's so funny. You talked a little bit just now about mindfulness, and I was thinking that your yoga classes must be, aside from all the amazing physical work you do, you give women this opportunity to really be mindful. And that is such an incredible gift to bring into the birth, especially because there's so many different sensations that come up. And if we can continue to be the observer of them, we can move through them with more ease, I think. And then, of course, into motherhood, that mindfulness is so essential. So before I ask our very last question, tell us where we can find you and what kind of offerings you have, specifically, I think, online for anybody watching, prenatal, postpartum, whatever you want to share.
Yeah, so we do live classes every week through Maternal. So once you become a member, and at the moment it's just $20 a month to become a member, and that gives you access to a private Facebook group where all of the live classes are streamed. So you can either just be doing your class in Facebook if you want to, or you can join live through a two-way video like this. It's just like what we're doing now.
Right.
So I can see you in your home and you can see me in my studio. So that as we're practicing prenatal or postnatal yoga, I can say, oh, you bring your legs a little bit closer together, or
I love that.
Try reaching up a little higher, and giving you that real-time feedback. And just making sure we're checking in before class and after class on how you're feeling. Because one of the pieces of feedback I continually get as I teach prenatal and postnatal yoga is one of the most valuable parts of it, after all the yoga stuff, is hearing from other mums on what they're experiencing, because then you realize you're not alone.
Absolutely.
Other people are going through the same thing, and so you don't have to worry. Like the worry is just like, oh, is something wrong with me, or is like, am I not doing it right?
Right.
Just get rid of that. That gets out of the way. So that really helps. And when there's mums, one class we had like a woman that was like 4 weeks postpartum in class, and a woman who was a year postpartum, both practicing yoga together, and both able, we're still doing work on pelvic floor. We're still doing work on opening shoulders and like all of that breastfeeding aches and pains. And even from 1 year to 5 weeks, like there's a huge difference in how far you become mother. But you can then look at this woman who's a little further ahead of you and go, oh, like there is light at the end of the tunnel. That's going to be me,
Oh, that's beautiful.
So that's what we do. We do all of those classes live, prenatal classes and postnatal classes. And then all of those classes are recorded at the same time. So you have a library of all the classes you've done and classes you haven't done. So you can go in and just do those classes whenever you want to. And it's really, there's a lot of love. There's a lot of love in the community, which beautiful. I love, which I'm just so happy to be able to facilitate.
I can feel it beaming. I feel you beaming from the inside. I can just only imagine how special and magical it is. Well, if I become pregnant again, I will definitely be joining your community.
Yay! Come on in. Yeah, it's really great.
Yeah. So just one last question. I know you already covered a lot, but if there's any little last thing you could add, I wanted to ask you if you could go back in time or if you could sum up just in a couple of minutes what potent advice you could have for either mothers to be or new mothers or both, perhaps something you could have told yourself 5+ years ago, what would it be?
I would say listen to your heart. I would say just really and I'm going to cry saying this because you do, right? You just listen to your heart and what is the right thing for you and your babies. Listen to your heart.
I hope the viewers can feel that energy, and let's just take a moment to really take that in, to give ourselves permission as women to follow that voice inside. It's so important on our journey. And
you do have the answers.
Yeah.
You really do. You know what is right for you and your baby. And don't feel like you need to rush back into the world. Accept that things are different. And don't feel that need to rush back into the world. You've got nothing to prove to anybody. And the world will be just waiting for you. when you're done with your mothering, it's still there.
It's true.
It's still going on and on and on.
It's
and
still
the
spinning.
still spinning, and it doesn't stop, and you don't lose your momentum. That you've just got so much to gain through investing in yourself and in your babies through this time.
Yeah, so true.
You really do. You really do.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Oh, it's been such a joy to talk to you, and I'm so thankful that you said yes to this interview. I know that it's going to be just such a potent one for our viewers, so I really appreciate you being here.
Great, my pleasure. And if you ever need anything else for this summit or for other interviews, I'm here.
Yay! Sounds great.
And I hope that we can have you teaching a workshop through maternal soon as well.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. I'm excited. Well, thank you so much, and have a beautiful rest of your day.
Thank you so much, Nancy. Namaste.
Namaste. Bye.
Bye.